Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Pies Nation podcast, where the pies are hot and the drinks are cold. Nicholas Sacco here, your host once again. It's episode 13 of season 7, or episode 186 if you're counting from the beginning. It was a result we have dreamt of for a long time on Friday night as the Hollywood Hawks flopped in a 51-point defeat to the mighty Magpies, moving us to 10-2 approaching the King's birthday weekend. And with so many stars shining in this side, it's hard not to get excited about what is to come in 2025. Today we'll relive the glorious moments from the win over Hawthorn, discuss the performances from the players that made it possible, listen to plenty, and I mean plenty, of joyous fans thanks to SpeakPie, and chat to our next guest, the Crowd competition winner. So much to look forward to. I'm very glad to have two men in my company to talk all about it. Humphries, Jack Dugan. Welcome, gents. It's always nice to come into these episodes off a win, but to come off a win against Hawthorn, which doesn't happen too often, geez, signs are looking pretty good early.
In emphatic fashion, Nico, thank you for having us, boys. Good to be here. Yeah, couldn't believe it on Friday night. Obviously put that immediate reaction up on our socials, Lukey.
Gone viral.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I don't know about that. But no, very, very pleased with how Friday night went. Thought that could have gone a various amount of ways, and that was not one I thought it could go. On the night, our ability to match all of Hawthorn's challenges, when you go back and rewatch the game, there were opportunities in the game for them to really get themselves back into it. But our ability just to really keep them at arm's bay with all the things, all the big tick items that we know makes us a good side, really paid dividends in the end. And I think fortunate enough in the end that the scoreboard reflected our dominance for once, Nico, which is really pleasing, Lukey.
Yeah, and I think Fly said it might have been his most complete performance.
Most mature performance, he said.
As coach. Yeah. So hard to argue with that. It just felt like obviously Hawthorn, premiership favourites coming into this season, and this was a pretty much a season-defining game for both our clubs to work out where we sit in the pecking order of things, and for us to come out and play the way we did, I think just shows where we are at as a footy club right now. And I feel like we're almost at the point where we've perfected what we did in 2023. I don't want to go too early, but it just feels like each week we are gaining momentum and building upon performance. So just feeling like so confident each week, no matter who we play, that this side can't lose.
Well, not to get too ahead of ourselves, as you can see by the flag behind us, that does say 2023 Premier. Shout out to Angelo as well, who's a big fan of the pod, that brought that one in for us. So we were going to bring it out last week, couldn't quite get the adjustments right, and then now that we've defeated Hawthorn, we thought it'd be opportune to bring that one out.
There is a bottle cap style operation sitting to the right-hand side of it though, Nico. So does that mean that the lid is still on? No. Is that a euphemism for
maybe it has to stay intact until we know for sure that the lid is off, and then we won't see it again. But for those that are watching on YouTube, and by the way, thank you very much everyone that has subscribed, 1,000 subscribers on the Pies Nation podcast YouTube channel. So thank you very much. If you haven't subscribed yet and you're watching, be sure to do so. It does mean a lot and helps us along our way. But a couple of extra additions to our lovely little setup here behind us. Jack, you've got a nice little premiership medal behind you.
Yeah, very lucky. That was a bonus throw in when I was gifted a premiership jersey a couple of years ago, Lukey. So lucky to have that one. I've also brought some premiership beers in there. Hopefully there's another 6-pack or a few slabs of those coming at the end of this season. And yeah, just a little teddy bear that I had in my wardrobe. Found that this afternoon. So those are my contributions to the shelves so far, Nico.
And Luke, you've brought us our first jumper of the studio.
Yeah, so I found it in the cupboard. I've got a few Guernseys that have been hidden away for a little while, but the Legends Series Guernsey, which was released, I reckon,
2016.
Yeah.
Star Athletic looks like that 15-16 vibe.
So, yes, that was a nice little purchase. I think I still had it in the box for many years until probably the last couple. I've got it out and just had it hanging in the cupboard, but thought it would look nice up there. So a few of Collingwood's greatest on that Guernsey. I've never worn it, I don't think.
It's not one you see around at the games too often, I don't reckon.
Yeah, I think it was a limited edition, obviously, but probably, and then there goes.
Oh, I hope that's not some foreshadowing.
Just as we were
it's
talking
just making
about.
room for the next one.
Okay. Well, just as we were talking about. Oh, it's quality. That's a blue tack that we've just got just lined up there. That's
because the pies are so hot, Nico, that it's melting away the blue tack, and the flags can't stay on the wall. So not to worry.
Cheers. We're certainly not getting ahead of ourselves here on this podcast right now, are we? I will leave it for now. It'll be a little funny gimmick, but we'll put it back up a bit later. All right. Well, let's get to the pie that caught your eye in from Friday night. I'm sure there were again many to choose from. Jack, I'll start with you.
I've tried my hardest not to go obvious here, but I really was impressed with this man's body of work. And it's got to be said, his whole body of work up until this point in the season has been amazing. That's Tim Membry, the man they call the skunk Nico. Just his ability to his gut running and constantly compete for us and get down the line is just amazing. And I think what he does is a bit underrated for us. There's a passage of play that results in the second side bottom goal on Friday night where we had to switch the ball, which forced him to run from one wing to the other wing. His initial lead wasn't honoured. So you could forgive any big tall forward for just giving up on the play and allowing the next bloke to sort of pick up where he left off. But he made the effort, right, and maybe because it was just in front of us that I saw this, but he made the effort to sprint back down, lose his opponent, double back, and end up getting the ball from the person that didn't kick into him in the first place. I think it might have been Lipinski. And the amount of times that happens within a game and what that does for our structure in allowing blokes like Elliott, Bobby Hill, Brody Myercheck to flourish and kick goals is so important. And in the absence of a Dan McStay, we've really relied upon Tim Membry to lift, and he's just about being recruit of the year for mine because his ability, again, and to work so hard and what that does for our structure is absolutely immense, and I just thought he deserved a bit of a highlight.
Very nice. I think some listeners get caught up into thinking that this segment is about who we thought was the best on the ground, and I like that you do bring a different perspective to this, Jack, because I think what's always been impressive about Tim Membry since he's come in is his IQ. His footy IQ is second to none, and it just works so well in a team that has so much experience like Collingwood does. So to hear you highlight some of those examples, it doesn't get shown. It's not a statistic, but it does go a long way towards us getting a performance under our belt like we did against the Hawks. So well done.
I think you nail it in terms of obviously our forward line is flourishing right now, and Membry's not always on the receiving end of the stats or the goals, but obviously what he's doing for this side, he's opening up opportunities for the rest of our forward line, and especially with McStay out, it was always going to be a big talking point whether Membry could kind of fill those shoes, and he's doing it pretty well at the moment.
And he celebrated his goal pretty hard on the weekend, noted by the commentators and indeed a few fans around us. And I thought that was just him celebrating a bit of a reward for effort, I thought, on the night. He has, been quite good bobbing up from game to game with a few score involvements. But, on the night, you could really tell he got up and about. And, it was well-deserved. Lukey, the pie that caught your eye.
I'm going with Edward Allen.
Nice.
I reckon this might have been his best game in his little career so far. Just kind of a breakout performance. I feel like a bit of confidence has come his way now on the big stage, obviously getting more games under the belt, but just able to get a lot more of the footy and show off, I guess, what we've seen in the VFL and what they're seeing on the training track, just his running power across the ground. A bit of, Pendlebury-esque moments I felt like at times with him just holding the ball for that second longer to get the right hand pass out or find the right option. 23 disposals at 74% disposal efficiency, over 300 metres gained. I thought he was exceptional on the night and a reason or a key contributor to our victory and why it was so dominant.
So career high disposal count, and has just been announced as the Rising Star nominee.
Congratulations.
For the rounds. That literally just came through as we were about to start recording. So, just reward. And you felt like it was a long time coming, and there'd been talks about what his place in the side was going to be coming into the start of the season. But, very impressed by Ed Allen, and it's going to be very tough to see him not be in this 22 once we have our full side back in, but it might be a bit of a tough task.
And his composure in the back line as well on the night, Lukey, I'm not sure if you just highlighted that then, but I think he had 4 or 5 side steps in, 5 metres out from our defensive goal. So the young fella showing a bit of confidence, a bit of composure, and very excited for what his future holds.
And I think just that's the difference from his, I guess, past games to where he's probably getting to now, is that just that confidence to have the ability to hold on to that footy for a second longer and find the right option. So good to see he's coming along well, and obviously more games on the big stage is only going to help him.
Oh yeah, he's certainly not going to be out of this team in the short term, that is for sure. Geez, there was too many to choose from. And I'm glad that you guys went with less obvious ones because I'm going to go with the more obvious one. And I don't think I've used him as a pilot caught my eye this year, so I'm going to claim that I'm allowed to for my once this year. It was Jamie Elliott, and it was very hard to go past. Just another stellar display. 5 goals, 10 disposals, 3 marks inside 50, 10 score involvements, gave Josh Battle an absolute bath, spun him around like he was nothing in that third quarter goal where he kicked his 4th. Rewatching the game and listening to the post game again, Fox Footy made a good point that he plays so much like a key full forward. The way he commands the football, demands that one-on-one when he is deep inside forward 50, but having the ability then to go and mark overhead, to mark out in front, to have constant leading patterns that puts him in such terrific oppositions, and just the way that he's able to use his goal sense to his advantage and kick straight when he has set shot opportunities, but also have those ground ball gets that allow him to go up and just kick brilliant goals like he did. I've not been more impressed by what I'm seeing from Jamie Elliott in season 2025, and long may it continue. I really don't want to jinx him because this is the Jamie Elliott that we had deserved to see for a long time. We didn't know as Collingwood supporters if we were going to get it with all the injury concerns, and we're glad that he got his crowning moment throughout those 22, 23 years with those clutch goals and, of course, winning a premiership. But we're now seeing a full body of work from Jamie that we haven't seen before. And it is a telling reason why we are in the position we are, because we're getting such an output from him. So just love to see it. And, as I said, hopefully it continues throughout the year.
Well, he's in career best form, Nico. I think that's pretty well documented. And yes, you're right. We have got all those really, really lifelong memories from him and those brilliant moments. But yeah, as far as Jamie Elliott, the footballer, I can't say he's looked as dangerous as he has now over the course of his career. If you had told us back in that 2018 period that we would still have a Jamie Elliott running around for us in the forward line and he would be in career best form, I mean, who would predict that? So yeah, credit to Jamie, and yeah, really happy that he's able to sort of reap the rewards finally of what's been a really long and arduous career. Obviously notched up his 200th career game this year, which is super impressive. But yeah, hats off to the little man Billy.
He's as confident as ever. I think he played when he's confident, he plays just on another level. And I think it was obviously, remember the match winner against. Well, there it goes.
There it is. That's it. See you later.
The match winner against Essendon, where he just turns to the crowd and just looks out and says, nothing, no celebration. Just looks out. And he had a goal on Friday night against the Hawks where he just turned to the crowd and just looked. And he's got so much aura when he does that. Obviously, it feels like he's just on another level right now. And I tweeted that he's actually probably the best player in the comp at the moment.
Best player.
He's as hot as any player in this competition right now, especially now. He was equal leader in the Coleman. Don't know where sits.
Until Jeremy kicked some junk time, but anyway.
The West Coast.
Didn't catch any of that. But he's as good and as hot as any player in the comp right now. And any time we go inside 50, we look so dangerous. And obviously our inside 50 efficiency is a key reason as to why Elliott is playing as well as he is right now. So shout out to Billy, and yes, like you said, Nico, long may it rain.
Absolutely. And Brody Mychek still goes and kicks 4 goals, and that's not nearly as talked about, but his work rate was exceptional once again. He still finished with 6 score involvements, another 3 marks inside 50 and 2 tackles inside 50, and I don't think we can undersell the importance that he brings to the table, and he got a well-rewarded 4 goals as well for his efforts too.
Yeah, absolutely. And with a bloke like Mason Cox coming out of the side, all of a sudden you're one tall down the line without him. So Tim Membry and Brody Mychek just have to lift their load again, and they just deliver in spades for us. And against a quality outfit in Hawthorn down the line early, you felt in the game that Battle and Barras were taking control of the airwaves, and the best thing about this side at the moment is we have gears and we have abilities to recognise when we need to go about the game in a different way. That's not taking anything away from Checkers and Tim Membry, who were still brilliant on the night. But yeah, once we recognised that they were dominating in the way they were doing, we probably forced Brody Mychek and Tim Membry up the ground even further to take their possessions, which, as you said, Nico, points to their immense work rate.
Yeah, he's been superb, and it's great to see the forward line in sync like they are. We'll talk on a couple more individual performances in a moment, but I want to just talk about the match and its importance in general. I think Friday was a pretty significant hump to get over as Pies fans, and I'm talking here in terms of believing we could get to a premiership again this year. The Hawks have been, as we know, a pretty strong bogey side for Collingwood for over a decade, and there's been a lot of instances with Hawthorn getting the better of Collingwood. Even in games where you see the Pies as a better team on paper, Hawthorn have always found a way to win, and it's been a concern that I've felt and even felt on Friday night coming into the MCG, knowing that we were in the form that we were and the Hawks were in the form that they were, still didn't have that confidence and belief that we could go and get the 4 points. But to not only win, but win in the manner that we did. We toyed with them. We just had the efficiency behind us. Everybody on the field were playing their part. And to prevail by over 50 points for the first time in 15 years, it suggests to me that this is a team that's pretty determined to leave no stone unturned in 2025, and a team that is destined for pretty big things. And furthermore, a team that has every single player engaged with the same mindset, that mindset being that they're desperate, of course, to get back to the top this year. For me, it was a really big test on Friday. We got past it, and I think this is a performance that we're going to look back on at season's end as one that affirms that we are truly capable of going all the way this year. And I couldn't be more impressed with how we finished off that game.
Yeah, absolutely. Even if you cast your mind back to that Geelong game, Lukey, we were saying the next day how that felt like our first real big test of the year, despite, losing the game after the siren. We still, we failed that in the sense that we lost the game, and we've had a month of, pardon me, a pretty solid amount of footy in terms of coming up against top opposition. Freo over there, undermanned, Adelaide at home, and North Melbourne, who, for the better part of 3 quarters, tested us to our absolute limits. So you felt this is our first real big test up against a genuine top 4 threat, and many see Hawthorn as that, despite losing the 3 this week. And just within the game itself, there were so many moments where, old Collingwood sides might have just let Hawthorn come back into it. And we're talking deep into the third, I want to say, when Gunston kicked a goal.
Well, they kicked back-to-back goals with pretty much on the goal line with us not being able to defend it.
And we might let that back in. We might allow that momentum just to overcome us. But our system and the gears that we go to within the games and the personnel that we have, we haven't mentioned Ned Long's game just yet, but our ability to wrestle back that momentum and kill the opposition's ability to score and ability to transition the ball. Everyone jokes about lids off and premiership contention. And yes, we all know it's June and there's a lot of footy to play out between now and, the latter end of August into September, but we have everything in the makings of a premiership side, in my view, having already seen it again 2 years ago. If you're comparing the two sides, this side would kill our 2023 side. So imagine what that looks like if we are able to afford the opportunity for a home qualifying final, Lukey.
Yeah, and I think you touch on where we may have fell away in previous times. I think when Ginnivan, puts away his 3rd goal and Hawthorn have all the momentum in the world and, they're just having fun with us. They were coming, and it just felt like we just had to stop them in their tracks, and that's when we put them away late in that second quarter. And it felt like we had a bigger lead at halftime than what we probably deserved, but it was nice that we got to that lead and then went on with things in the second half instead of potentially letting Hawthorn back into it. So it was nice, again, for us just to go away and get on with it and not let it get to a 3rd quarter scare or early 4th quarter where Hawthorn get a bit of momentum. So, yes, the ability for this team, and that's where I think the difference is from 23, is we would be potentially letting a side back into it and having that, close finish right at the end. And I think this year we're seeing this team go to another level and know when the game is there to be won and when to really take it away from the opposition.
Do you agree with Jack? Do you think this team would beat our 23 team?
Well, that's right. I reckon we are a perfected version of 23. I think 22 and 23, I feel we're quite similar. We probably didn't improve on a lot from 22 to 23. I think we just found our mode and kept going with it, and thankfully it can transcend it into the next season instead of potentially like what Hawthorn is doing this season, where they've fallen away just a little based on their form last year. Obviously 24, I feel like was just a bit of an anomaly. We celebrated potentially too hard and too long, but I think that's completely fine. It's, you don't win a premiership every day, but I think the hunger is there as strong as it's ever been, stronger than it was in 23. And I think this group knows that they are so capable. And the leaders, the experienced heads there, this is potentially their last chance, so they want it as bad as anyone.
And we know Hawthorn, as I mentioned, have coming off two losses on the trot before this game. They've got their own troubles at the moment, but not should be understated. I don't think we'd be carrying on like this if it wasn't a win against Hawthorn, which we've mentioned.
I agree, 100%.
Because not only you look at the start, I think it was 15-2 the last 17 times we've met them, but just compare the two groups. Compare Sam Mitchell coaching versus Craig McRae's coaching. I reckon Sam Mitchell had Craig McRae's number by a combined total of about 160 points, just about. It's not that much, but it would be close. So for the mental fortitude of this group to beat that group in the manner that it did, and the way that they've just essentially had their way with us over the past 2 to 3 years, I think this is massive, and that's why I think we're just developing new levels to our game. We're getting better. We're finding gears, and if this trend continues, which is going to be hard. Heard Bucks on the radio today. To be able to maintain this between the months of June and August is going to be so difficult. So that's the next challenge for this team.
100%. I'm so glad you mentioned a third quarter and the way we were able to, in Fly's words, be mature enough to go on with the job and not give Hawthorn an opportunity, because you're right, those back-to-back goals, already the gears in Collingwood fans' heads are like, we're going to have to try and absorb some pressure here, because all of a sudden this could be a 1-2 goal game heading into the final term. But I think, and again, Ned Long, you mentioning him, superb third term. Individually, 8 disposals at 88% efficiency, 5 score involvements and 4 tackles in the third quarter alone for Ned Long. I mean, you cannot ask for much more. And he had, you could argue, a quadruple double in the statistical regime. 24 touches, 11 tackles, 10 score involvements, 10 contested possessions. It's hard to describe the effect and the influence that Ned is having on this side. And again, you can catch our chat with him from a few months ago if you want.
I reckon he's been in the best form of his life since that chat.
Since our chat. No, but the point is, he's such a barometer now for his team. He sets the tone, and he's done it time and time and again. He did it in the first quarter against North Melbourne last week, and it allowed the pressure pies to come to full swing.
And having stints in the ruck, if you don't mind, as well, against Lloyd Meek, and not getting absolutely embarrassed either. He's competing hard. Representation of his ability as a midfielder, transitioning that into his ability as a ruckman. But I echo your sentiments there, Nico. He's been amazing so far this season. He was amazing on Friday night, and amazing at real pivotal points in this game where, as we said, it could have gone the other way. And due to blokes like Ned Long, and there's others in his team as well, it didn't, and that's why we walk away and we're able to sit here at 54 or 51 point winners.
Did you see any potential worry in regard to, obviously, Cox going out and second ruck being a mixture of Long and Billy Frampton? Did it feel at times that could have hurt us, or going forward it may hurt us against other oppositions?
I was going to bring this up later, but seeing as you've mentioned it now, I did have a little bit of concern. And Jack and I talked about it on Thursday when the teams came out and Cox wasn't in the side. I think we managed it fairly well. Mind you, we still lost the clearance and the inside 50 count against Hawthorn, which surprised me when going back to have a look. I felt least confident in the middle when Frampton was in the ruck, and that's not a blight on him personally, because we have seen him, yes, as you can see, yes.
He's also in best form.
But, so it's not a blight on him personally. I just felt like we were missing that genuine second ruck to really deal with maintaining that momentum, and it did threaten at times for us to lose that swing because we didn't have that dominance in the midfield. And I thought Cameron did a serviceable job. I thought Lloyd Meek was pretty impressive on Friday night. It was probably one of their better players for Hawthorn. I would like to see, if it's not going to be Cox back in this side, although I did hear he had a pretty good VFL game. We'll see the VFL report from Serge a little bit later on. But if it's not him, Oscar Steen was in the emergencies and looks very close to coming into this side, train with the main group. I think our preference would be to have a proper secondary ruckman. McStay isn't far away, and he'll play that role fine, and I'm sure that will cause no issues as it did at the start of the year. But for the immediate short term, until McStay does come back, I would like to see a genuine second ruckman.
Yeah, well, I think if you were comparing apples with apples, I think you probably at this stage could say McStay over Cox, which is, I don't think many would have too many arguments with that. McStay's ability in the ruck at the start of the season blew me away, honestly. So we know how dangerous he can be as a forward, but his pinch hitting was remarkable. The ruck stocks for me is not too much of a concern. You can get by throughout a game. It's concerning if we lose DC throughout the game what that looks like for the rest. But you can't sort of predict that until it happens. But for me, the danger becomes when we're trying to search long down the line and trying to get that release mark. And even late into the fourth quarter, you could still feel the fans in the crowd being a little bit frustrated by our inability to take a mark down the line. When we're playing the style and with the game plan that we had on Friday night, that doesn't matter too much. But there are going to be games when you just need a target down the line. And the beauty of a bloke like Mason Cox, I probably sound like a broken record saying this again, but regardless of what people think about his ability to actually take a mark, he's 7 foot tall and you need to defend him. So a bloke like Battle or a bloke like Barras, all of a sudden they have to go to him regardless of whether they respect him or not. They have to do it because he will take the mark if they don't. So that is gold for mine. So that's something that is worth having a watch for our immediate future. We'll go against the D's this week against Max Gorn, and he just loves putting himself behind the play. So that's something you'll get to later in the week for the preview, Nico. But do we look at getting him back this week? That could be maybe just like a game situation thing.
Cox-Allstein for me have to come in this week against Max Gorn purely, and we can sort things out with McStay potentially coming back after the bye. But I think there has to be some presence there. On Ned Long again, happy to keep bringing him up. His decision making for me was astounding. No, it didn't always come off, but I'd say 70-80% of the time, his decision making by hand and by foot, it's like he's been in the system for 100, 150, 200 games. That's what separates him from someone else of this ilk. And I know that we've spoken about Mitchell and DeGoey and how they look about coming back into this side, but it's not only his ability to go hard at it and win the footy at the coalface, but what he does with it when he has that opportunity. He rides tackles so well, he always waits until the last moment to ensure that he's got the right option and he's releasing that footy. As I said, not always perfect. Sometimes it does result in a turnover, but you're happy to sacrifice that because more often than not, it leads to a scoring opportunity. And it's proven in the statistics, double digits in score involvements in the last fortnight.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just development, Nico. Like, not only are we seeing this team develop, but we're seeing individual players develop so far. Lukey and Ned Long is absolutely one of those. I think 3 or 4 weeks ago, you probably could pencil it down that every time we got the ball in open space, it's probably just going to go long down the line and just sort of essentially be a bit of a clearance king. But yeah, brilliantly put, Nico. Friday night, you could tell he's more calculated with his disposal. He thought about it more. And it's one thing to think about it and try for it, but I thought he executed it more often than not. So dangerous signs. If you're opposition supporter and you've got blokes like opposition analyst, and you're trying to come up against Collingwood and blokes like Ned Long are developing week in, week out, it just adds more string to our bow and makes us harder to stop Lukey.
Was it Bucks that said Ned Long's our best midfielder across the next decade going forward, outside of Nick Dacos? Mind you, that
potentially,
was, I think it was Bucks that said that. So it's a pretty good call going off his form lately, but I think it just shows that time in the system. I know he's not exactly an older bloke, but he has had time in the system, opposition with Hawthorn, VFL time, and it just shows that some guys just take that little bit of extra time, and taking a punt on a guy that's had a couple years in the system can pay dividends, because it means we get to reap the benefits. And you look at every other club that, put him away, didn't consider him as an option. So it's a credit to our recruiting department for what they've seen and to pick him up and the development of him since he's been at Collingwood as well.
There's so much to talk about from this game, but there's only a few more points I want to highlight because, again, this podcast would go for about 4 hours. The pressure pies was at its absolute best, I felt, on Friday night. I don't think I've seen it better. 44 more tackles we had, 82 in total. I was probably expecting a little bit more from Hawthorn, considering they had a pretty poor tackle count the week prior against Brisbane. 44 of our 82 tackles happening in the front half, which led to 7 goals, 5. I mean, that's an insane statistic on its own. Our pressure rating was 186 at the 16-minute mark of the final term when the game was already done and dusted, and 18 of the 23 players that played for Collingwood on Friday night all laid multiple tackles. I mean, I talk about everybody having the same mindset. They're all buying into this concept. They know that the way that we win our footy games is by pressure, and pressure for consistent amounts of time, not just for a quarter or a half, for all 4 quarters. That leads us to win and win big.
Well, Nico, you know how much I love the pressure stat. I think it's our barometer for the Pies being successful. But what's impressive from that little spiel you just given us there is that we hurt them going the other way as well. So it's one thing to pressure, it's another thing to capitalise on Hawthorn's mistakes. So I felt on the night, every time they made a blunder or a mishandball, due to our high intensity, high pressure, we were able to go down the end and hurt them immediately, even though it might have come off the side of his boot. The one that Bobby Hill gets to my check, which should have been
that was a pass,
top of the goal square.
I went crazy at that. I was like, that was in the goal square. Why is he not in front? And then when they showed the replay, I was like, okay, maybe he was just outside.
You reckon he was just outside?
No, he was.
Was he?
Yeah, but I was like adamant that he was in the square. And then when they showed okay, well, that was my bad.
Which again points to our ability, but just to keep the Hawks at bay. So if you don't hurt them when your pressure's high and when you're smashing them in that area of the ground and you're not going down the other end and scoring from that, you all of a sudden when they're going down and scoring themselves, there's a bit more pressure in the game in the sense scoreboard pressure from them. So it's just another element of our game at the moment that's just so pleasing. It's a simple thing, but one we're getting absolutely spot on, Lukey.
Well, we spoke heavily at the start of the year about our inefficiency and inaccuracy in front of the big sticks and hurting the opposition and how it potentially could cost us a game. Now across the probably 4, 5, 6 weeks now, we've been easily the most efficient side in the AFL, and it's just so pleasing to see because our scoring shots I feel like have been pretty consistent across the whole year, sort of that 24, 25 plus scoring shots per game, but we are now actually making the most of our opportunities, and with limited inside 50 entries as well, we're still able to get a score, at least close to a score in nearly every single entry we go in.
27 scoring shots from 44 inside 50s.
That's just crazy.
And not only it hasn't happened just once. This has been happening consecutively. And also 18 marks inside 50 we had, and we scored 7 goals 5. So again, pretty impressive. Another example of the pressure that we had turning into a goal, a prime example for me was the Nick Dacos one, where we kept Hawthorn real deep inside their defensive 50, forced them into a kick which allowed Ned Long to swoop, handballs inboard to Nick, and he kicks the goal. Marcus wanted to make a point. He's not here tonight, of course, but he thinks that Dakes gets the 3 votes from the game on Friday night, and that moves him to 14 on a Nick Dacos Brownlow tracker. Him and Steele we haven't even mentioned yet, but I thought that pair were just astounding, and they were really good in terms of allowing us to keep the momentum going. Their ball winning ability was second to none. Steele side bottom coming off a break was just, again, vintage Steele. He's having an unbelievable year. He had nearly 600 metres gained and still managed 2 goals. They were both terrific, I thought, boys.
Amazing. Hoping that goal from Nick as well just sort of gives him that confidence to go out the rest of the year. And that's a ridiculous thing I know to be saying about Nick Dacos, but you feel this year the only blight on his game is his ability to impact the scoreboard when he's been given his opportunity. I felt like times this year he's just tried a little bit too hard to try for the miraculous goal. Gets somewhat of an easy opportunity by Nick Dacos standards and pins his back and absolutely nails it. To the steel side bottom point, Nico, not just him, but I thought our senior members of this team, when the game was still there to be won in that early stage of the late stage of the first, early stages of the second, Steel Sidebottom coupled with a Jeremy Howe and their ability to read the play and their impact on the game at that moment was just absolutely massive. That we've got this amazing mix of youth with blokes like Ned Long, Nick Dacos, and then to have those guys at times of high pressure from the other team, when the other team's transitioning it, like the amount of times I watched Jeremy Howe leave his man, take a mark, just to just relax and relieve that valve.
He set the tone early with some great intercepts as well.
Amazing. So those boys, deserve all the plaudits they get. And I honestly sit for here every week when we watch Steel Sidebottom, and the ability for him to impact the games he is. After seemingly I was prepared to retire him last year.
You weren't the only one.
Yeah, amazing.
That goal off a step.
Oh,
it's so
real mongrel punt. But anyway.
But it was just like that typical Steel Sidebottom goal, and a smile on his face and the celebration we get. I was going to touch on Jeremy Howe, especially his first half was as good as he's been this season, and as much as they were getting the intercept marks going their way, Howe was doing it for us on the counter. So so important for us, Jeremy Howe, and you can see that defence when it's functioning with Darcy Moore back out there now as well. That it is rock solid. And
what about Quainer? I haven't even touched on Isaac Quainer.
It felt like Craig McRae says most mature performance. I was going to say it was probably our best team performance we've had in years. I can't think of a better team performance where you could go through every single player and say, yep, they were rock solid for us tonight.
Yeah, for sure. And I still feel like Q's got such a long way to go in his development. I feel like he has an amazing game on Friday night, but still has moments where I think he would feel he could clean up. And that's so exciting for me, because if he does clean up those moments, so we're looking more and more dangerous. So he's one that I've been watching closely the last few weeks and just continuing that trend on the way up after having a down year last year.
We scored 71 points from intercepts. You know, that's not even top 5 under Craig McRae.
Wow.
That's you have to laugh. Last point I want to make, and it's on the defence again. So Josh Dacos was matched on Jack Ginnivan. I made my thoughts on that very known in the group chat, particularly by half-time when he kicked 3 on him. Love Josh, and we know that he's not a great defender. But what the topic I want to broach to you, gents, is how much do you sacrifice his game, knowing that he accumulates a lot of the football, can rebound well, and gets a lot of touches that allow us to go forward, as opposed to what he brings defensively, which isn't as strong, and allowed Jack Ginnivan to get off the chain a little bit in that first half. Yes, it tightened up a little bit, and he got some assistance in that area from the likes of Quainer and Dan Houston, I felt, which were pretty important. But yeah, how much do you go about keeping Josh on him, because we know that when we win the ball back due to our team defence, he can then get off the chain and send us forward with his brilliant disposal. But then knowing on the flip side that if you get caught out with Dacos and Ginnivan in a one-on-one situation, that he might not be able to be up to the task.
Yeah, well, as you just mentioned there, Nico, it just puts more onus on the others to lift, right? It just puts more onus on a bloke like Dan Houston, Isaac Quainer, to make sure that they're in the game and they're essentially covering for him. We spoke about it on Thursday night, with the Hawthorn's, small forward line, Dylan Moore, Nick Watson, Jack Ginnivan, that this could be an area that we get exposed. And sure, we got exposed a little bit. I actually thought, I'm being very critical of Josh Dacos and his inability to defend at times, but I thought there's a few moments, especially in the second half, that he got where he actually did quite well, but it's when the ball's in the air, he's essentially, it's tough for Josh to get in the game. I'll just put it like that. But who do we?
Because it's like, do you then switch Quainer onto him? But then that means that someone like Nick Watson
exactly.
becomes
So
more
then
free.
Quainer's man's all of a sudden getting off the chain. It's just going to be. I think it's in-game dependent. Obviously, the alarm bells were going off at halftime with the impact that Jack Ginnivan was having, and more so probably for us Collingwood supporters, being how frustrating it was. I think you're prepared to let Josh continue doing what Josh does, as long as when the ball's on the ground, for mine at least, he still goes.
Yep.
So when the ball's on the ground and you need to tackle your man, you're still nailing the tackle, which, to Josh's credit, I highlighted on the night, I thought he did do quite well.
After half-time, much better.
After half-time, much better.
Yes.
So that's something that I think you can just sort of cop throughout the rest of the season. You've almost got to, like the way we're playing at the moment and how well we're going, this is going to sound very arrogant, but keep worrying about yourself. Don't worry about the opposition.
Yep.
Let Josh Dacos be the one that the opposition worries about. Don't let Josh Dacos' opponent be the one that we have to worry about.
Well, that's what I'm thinking. I thought Josh was a bit unlucky on the night, and I felt like Jack just ended up in the right spot like the opportune time where the ball just fell out and he was there and able to take a quick kick. And, credit to him, he took his opportunities. But second half, how many junk disposals was he amassing? Yeah. I know he gets to 31, finishes with 31, I think it was, but I know he kicked the 3 goals, but it felt like his impact was so minimal that it didn't really affect the game whatsoever. And I was never really worried that he was going to be the difference maker. And that's not being, just biased against Jack Ginnivan. But it felt like the ball just fell to him at times in the first half for him to kick those goals. And it was just like one of those, of course, he's going to do this tonight. But it never felt like once the game was, you get 4 quarters of a performance that he was going to be the one to really break us apart. So,
well, we didn't have much help either, and that was the other thing. Compared to what we do with Jamie and Brody and Bobby, even talk about Tim Membry, they're all getting involved either with the ball or without the footy. Hawthorn's forward line was anything but.
You see, as soon as the energy is gone,
Yep.
that whole team almost capitulates.
Yep.
And
Yep.
that's where, that was probably the worry for them coming into this season, was the energy last year was at an all-time high. But how do you keep that running
Yep.
for another, 6 to 8 months? So, They've got a few issues, the Hawks.
Yeah, that's how we like it. All right, let's get to, again, there's so many facets of this game we could talk about, but again, we'd be here forever. So let's swing across to what our votes are. That's probably Jack on the phone, actually. He may have just heard what we're talking about, so that's okay. It would have been tough to pick, but where did you lean, Jack?
It was hard. I didn't quite agree with Marcus on giving Nick the 3. I've given him the 1. The impactful on the night, amazing. Probably a victim of his own status again from me. But I gave the 1 to him, 2 to Steele. Again, mentioned just before, when the game was there to be won, the old boy stood up and Steele was leading that charge. And I gave the 3 to Jamie Elliott with Ned Long and Checkers being stiff omissions, Lukey.
Yeah, I'm going to give 1 to Nick as well. I think I'm going to actually have the same votes as you. 1 for Nick, 2 for Steele, and 3 for Billy. Jeremy Howe, incredibly stiff.
Yep.
But yeah, Billy Elliott deserves the 3.
I can't believe that Ned's not going to feature in these.
And here's another. I think Ed Allen's also stiff.
Yeah. I went Steele 1, Dacos 2, Jamie Elliott 3. So very similar. But geez, this was a real tough one to pick. But again, all for good reasons. So that's always what we want. All right, let's get the cans on because we've got a big addition to SpeakPie here. We had so many people send in their SpeakPie, and we are very grateful for that because we love getting the fans their voice on the episode. So thank you for everybody that does. It's just that we're not going to be able to play them all, unfortunately. There were so many to choose from, but have been able to narrow the list down a little bit. So we'll see how we all go. I'm going to start here with, let's start with Lee. So thank you very much, Lee, for sending them through. A lot of new ones too, which is great.
Say goodbye to Hollywood. Say goodbye, my baby. Stick that up your collective asses, you arrogant bastards. Carnapies!
I like it.
All right, he made his thoughts pretty clear. Next one I'm going to next one we're going to listen to, I should say. This one's from Colin, who gave us a message during the week and has been trying to get on. So we are very grateful. 72 years old is Cole, and he's a big fan of our pod, so very much grateful, but he wanted to have an opportunity and he was finally able to get the voice memo together. So here's what Colin had to say.
G'day, boys. It's Colin here. You bloody beauty. We've been playing some scintillating football all this year. We put those arrogant Hawks back in their box. The new blokes, Houston, Perryman, Ed Allen, and, of course, Ned Long have fitted seamlessly into our system. I was born into a Collingwood family 72 years ago, and I tell you what, this last 4 years under Fly has been the most enjoyable that I can remember. Now, let me tell you, I've got my arms firmly around the lid, but I'm finding it very hard to keep it on. Did you hear that? The lid just exploded and landed in Punt Road. Bring on King's birthday.
Oh, that's fun.
Thanks, boys. And there's only one thing left to say. Collingwood.
Oh, that's awesome. No. Thanks for that, Colin. That was worth the wait.
Exceptional, Colin. So always send it through, Colin, because we love to hear the passion.
And coming from a man as well, Nico would have seen a lot of heartbreak over those 72 years. So for him to say that the lid's off and this is exciting times, that means a lot.
No wonder he's enjoying these 4 years after all he's had to go through. This is Wilbur. There's a lot of short ones here, so we can get through them all.
Tell you what, boys. Just finished watching the game on my couch. Here in Tassie with my 2 boys. The lid's starting to lift. Here we go. Listen to this. It's coming. There it is. Pretty pumped. We're heading over next weekend to watch the King's birthday game, and we're pretty excited as a family. And the lid's starting to lift. Oh, let's go the Pies.
Not getting ahead of ourselves here at all, are we? That seems to be the tone. Let's do Lockie here. Thank you, Lockie.
But I thought the Hawks might come out with a bit of a fire under their arse considering their loss to Brisbane last week. But, oh, my God. I am in awe of this team.
in their handball chains, how they all know where each other are, making strong leads, strong tackles, and our pressure's fantastic. All right, up the Pies.
I reckon they did come out with a bit of fire, the Hawks, but we were just too good for them. And as the game unfolded, we just continued that way.
And I reckon our handball chains have been a lot more effective. Sometimes we're still a bit too handball happy, but more often than not, again, it seems to be sticking, so that's good. Let's swing through these. John from Druin now. Thank you, John.
G'day, lads. It's John from Druin here. Hope you had a sensational night. I know I did. The death of Hockball, Friday the 30th of May, 2025. And everyone will know, where were you when Nick Dacos had his first ever contested mark? What a performance by the boys. 4 quarters of absolute glorious footy by the Pies. Didn't put a step wrong. And night, Ginny. That's all I got to say. Keep up the great podcast. Loving it. See you, boys.
I haven't even touched on the Dacos contested mark. That just flew on socials after that. That was funny.
Yeah, I forgot about that as well. And night.
Yes, absolutely.
We are giving them a bit of stick, and rightfully so. We've copped it over the last couple of years.
Absolutely.
But don't forget, we've got to play them, I think, the second last game or third last game of the year, so it could come back.
They'll be playing for 10th spot anyway, so it's all good.
Okay, let's hope you're right. Another Johnny here, so thank you, Johnny.
Boys, if the lid wasn't off, the lid is off now for sure. Had a Hawthorn fan sitting behind me complaining about the free kicks. Thought that was a bit funny considering they're literally known free kick Hawthorn, so the irony in that. But anyways, go Pies, love the pod.
Thanks, Johnny.
Did you catch Checkers, I think it was, that spoke about how they practice their tackling through the week, preparing for the dropping of the shoulders?
Oh, really? No, I didn't hear that.
So he said that post-game, and I thought that was quite funny and a little dig back at.
Just particularly for this week,
and like we're just full of confidence at the moment. We got like Steele as well in his post-game saying, you know, how he had the 4 bounces, and he's like, well, I only had
Guinea was practicing his treadmill over the week, I reckon.
Guinea running after me, so it was all good. So we're just throwing a little
nice
fire back at the Hawks.
We've got a few 5-second ones here. I haven't heard them yet, but this is Melanie. Let's see.
Jamie Elliott's a goat. Sorry, Dacos.
Okay, that's been taken away. There you go. Andrew here. Thank you, Andrew.
I'll keep it simple, fellas. Premiers.
Okay.
I don't mind it.
Damo. Thanks, Damo.
Gentlemen, this is Ned Long's world. We're just living in it. Over and out.
It
Okay.
sounded like Marcus.
I did a little bit, I wonder. A few more to finish because these are all very good. This is Al. So thank you, Al.
Magpies Army. Let me tell you, I'll give you some stats. 22 players in a sub, absolute 5-star, 4-quarter performance. You just sit back sometimes and admire just how bloody good this team is. And what a privilege it is to watch them when they're playing this good. We come up against the Hawthorn team that have been difficult to match up against in the past, and tonight every single player did their job to a T. So, yeah, really happy, and a great night to be a Collingwood supporter. Let's let this season roll on. Lid is just the border is boiling underneath this lid right now, and really excited to see how we finish off the regular season and set ourselves up for our finals. Cheers.
All right, very good.
It's a great point, Nico, and Marcus highlighted it in our group chat as well. It really is a pleasure to be a Collingwood supporter right now, and that's not something that a lot of Collingwood supporters have been supporters for 72 years, like Colin, who was on before. So right now, just soaking this in and soaking how good we are and how enjoyable it is to watch us week in, week out. It's a pretty good time to be a Pie.
It's also, and I've said this to a few people, comparing to other clubs, there is no better club to support than Collingwood, and that's always been
obvious.
That's always been fact, but the last 3-4 years, it has just been exceptional. And you look at Carltons and Essendons.
Yeah.
And God, you just imagine going for them.
Oh, a bit of a drive-by for our producer, Daniel.
We need to trademark this lid because it has
everyone's
blown
talking
up.
about it.
We'd be fighting Dan Gorringe.
Yeah, at this
Right, I
point.
reckon, at this
Jesus. All right, let's finish up this segment with a couple more. This is Sean, first timer here. Thank you, Sean.
Gentlemen, I'll try and keep it slow so you can understand my Yorkshire UK accent.
Nice.
What a win that is. Not only a statement win, but that shuts those dirty little Hawks up and their cocky fans. What a win. Some seriously good performances today. Up the mighty pies. The lid is barely on. It's just about on the rim. But it's looking good, boys. It's looking good. Up the pies.
You know, sometimes it's real satisfying hearing "Go Pies" from an English Yorkshire accent. I don't know what it is.
If the Pies were playing the EPL, Nico, do you think we might be in the Yorkshire region? Because the region, that just sounded right. I think that was gold.
It did. Thanks, Sean. That was really good. I was very impressed. Last one here. We're going to go to our old mate Marcus in Dallas, who's given us an update. So let's finish off with him. Thank you, Marcus.
Gentlemen, how we doing? 7:30 a.m. here. Beautiful morning. I'm walking around the golf course. Early morning tee time after teeing off on the Hawks. How good. What are my thoughts? Well, the Hollywood Hawks look like a bit of a box office flop tonight. Can't wait to hear what the Corn has to say on that one. His mate Wizard Watson was looking like Neville Longbottom out there. Meanwhile, Jamie Elliott's tap dancing on him down the other end. Listen, fellas, we're the best there is, plain and simple. Ain't no doubt about it. All we got to do is just keep banking the wins here. Draw to Melbourne probably, lose a useless game to Richmond or West Coast. And the 2025 flag is incoming. So, unfortunately, no Devils game today for me to update you on. Next week, we travel down to Austin for the Texas Cup, playing against the Austin Crows and the Houston Lone Stars. Should be a cracker. Anyway, up the pies, fellas. Hooroo. Lid is hanging by a thread.
Neville Longbottom's just copying a try by. That is brilliant. That was gold. Any Harry Potter fans out there, that'll make you giggle for sure.
Very impressive from Marcus. So thanks to our sponsor, North Texas Devils. Good luck in the Texas Cup against some of those other teams that he had mentioned there. And that's another ripping edition of SpeakPie. So thank you very much. Great to see everyone get involved. Lots of new people in there as well, which is nice to see. We like to keep building this up. That's probably the best edition just about that we've had for a while. So thank you very much to all of those. Let's swing across now. Our guest, the margin, 51 points. Did we have anybody, Lukey?
Yes,
we did. Jeez, that's
brave.
I'd be astounded to see that there was someone.
There was one.
As confident.
I screenshotted it somewhere and I've lost it.
Okay.
I'll get rinsed for this, but I wasn't even confident enough to tip us. So that was how much.
What you did in our Thursday.
Scarred tissue. Yeah, so I tip us in our Thursday episode, but in the ones that we're tipping around the
interesting
comps, it's just scar tissue from
also,
previous
just
years.
a heads up to anyone, if you put it in either the crowd or the margin, I can see what time you put it in. So there's no point trying to trick me.
Trying to sneak it in, eh?
Because we had a couple, and it happens every week, but just, don't waste your time. It was Leo the Master, so his new handle, Leo Efron, but formerly Leo the Master, so a regular of Pies Nation. Had the Pies by 51, so the only one who got it. There was a couple in the 50s, so unfortunately not the exact margin, but good on those who were close. But yeah, Leo the Master.
Very nice. He's back in the fold. Very good. Well, he was pretty prominent when we won the flag, so maybe that's a good sign as well.
Yes.
Guess the crowd, another sold out crowd that wasn't sold out. Lovely. But we're speaking to, is it Alyssa, is that right?
Alyssa, yes. So technically second, but
Okay.
she was pretty close anyway. We didn't get any response from the winner, so
all right,
get stuffed.
Did you boys go on Friday?
Nope.
Our home game, right?
Yeah.
You think 80% Collingwood supporters, 20% Hawthorn. I've got to say, the Hawks fans probably got us, I reckon, on the night. I reckon it was probably about
Got us?
Yeah, they got
That's a
us.
big call.
They got us. Listening back to the game today, maybe it was a bit just where I was situated on the ground, but looking around the ground, there was a lot more brown and gold than black and white, which of course stands out. And when they were sort of taking the ascendancy in the first quarter, you felt like their roars for goal were a little bit louder than ours. So if there's anything the Hawks can take away from Friday night, that's something.
How was the Collingwood chant on TV sounded louder than it normally is?
They were different. I think it was a bit of a throwback to when we used to do it when we were like the game was dead and buried. It was like slow and methodical, and it took a while for the crowd to build into it. But once they did, it's the best.
It felt like we had one that was early, but then the second one that came was like, no, the game's won. This is, the Gold Jackets come on and this is over. So,
all right, let's have a quick chat then to Alyssa, our latest Guess the Crowd competition winner. Oh. I hear something on the line. I don't hear an answer. Hello? No? I'm going to try again because I did hear someone answer but didn't hear a ring or anything, but we'll try again. No?
Hello?
There we go. Hello, Alyssa. Thank you
Hello,
for...
how are you?
Yes, good, thank you. Well done and congratulations on being our Guess the Crowd competition winner for this week. We got you there in the end. That's very good. Now, tell us, were you one of the 80-odd thousand that made your way to the G on Friday night?
Unfortunately, no. I haven't missed a game for like 4 years, and my auntie booked her 60th party on that night, so I had to be in Adelaide instead.
Oh, gee, that is incredibly stiff. Well, hopefully
It was awful.
hopefully that's not a sign of things to come then, and you don't start missing some more games. So hopefully you've been able to catch a replay or some highlights, but we need to know your thoughts on how you felt the Pies did in that scintillating victory that we had over the Hawks.
Yes, so I was able to finally watch it yesterday. Oh my goodness, we were amazing. So during the party, I could see it on the TV, but it was very hard to concentrate. But Jamie Elliott, he is just, he's always been my favourite, but my God, how good has he been lately?
He's been amazing, Alyssa. Thank you so much for taking the time to come on. We speak about Jamie Elliott, Nick Dacos and Ned Long time and time again this year with how much they're improving and how much they are stars in this side. Do you have a player in mind that's perhaps having a bit of an underrated year or underrated sort of few years for this Collingwood team under Craig McRae?
I would say that I feel that, yes, the backline is getting some good recognition, but I don't think they're getting as much as they should be, particularly compared to last year, where we were really struggling in that area. This year they have just turned it around, and I think that has made such a difference to what we have been doing, particularly Billy Frampton. He has just been incredible.
The glove, Nico, Billy Frampton. I'm telling you, week in, week out, that all-Australian jacket's just starting to get measured up, I reckon. I'm serious. He's been immense. He kept Larky to a goal. He made Thrillthorpe look silly. He's just doing it again, week in, week out. Marbiol did nothing. He's a freak. Jeremy Cameron only kicked the one goal. Billy Frampton played on him, by the way. Just saying. So putting together an immense year, and thank you, Elise, for mentioning that. I've got his badge on my scarf. Bought that. Probably the first person to buy a Billy Frampton badge this year. But
starting a trend. You're starting a trend, are you?
So impressed with his body of work this year.
Lukey?
G'day, Alyssa. Congratulations. You weren't quite the winner, but second place, a very close second on Guess the Crowd. I know you just said that you haven't missed a game in 4 years. Have you been guessing the crowd for every game across those 4 years with the Pies Nation Guess the Crowd?
I should have said I haven't missed a game in Melbourne, I haven't got to all the interstate ones. But anyway, so I've only started doing the Guess the Crowd this year, and on Friday night when I realised that I was only about 50-something off, I was like, what are the odds that it was the game that I am not there? We actually had a joke that it would be 8 less because this group of people wasn't going to be at the game. But yeah, so I've only been trying for a few weeks. I'm pretty proud that I got it so close already.
That's pretty impressive, I must say then. Maybe that's the sign for you to keep winning these. But you said there's 8 of you. Who's the group that you like to tag along and get to games with each week?
Yeah, so I always go with my mum and dad. So they will be listening to this podcast right now and hearing my voice as a surprise. So hi, Chris and Vince. Big fans of the pod they are. And also with my sister, my nephews, girlfriends of theirs come along. They bring their own friends and nieces and nephews. There's always a big group of us. So it's always such a fun time, such a family affair when we go to the footy.
That's fantastic. Now, it's been a running theme of this episode talking about lids and whether they're on or off. Now, you mentioned you haven't missed a game for a while, which I will assume that you were at the 23 grand final. I'll take a guess and say that you were there.
Yes, thankfully.
Yes, very nice. Again, I like to reminisce about that particular day, and that's just by no means a connection of how we think we're going to go this year. But I want to get a quick summary of what your day was like on that 2023 grand final day, because it's a moment that will stay with all of us for a long time. But as someone that likes to get to games as often as you do, would love to hear what your story was about getting to the match and your summary about how amazing of a day it was.
Yes, absolutely. I could talk about that forever.
Nice. All right, go on.
So my mum and dad and my sister and I are all 30-plus year members, so we got to get in the ballot before my nephews, who are only in their early 20s. So I got 4 tickets to be in the standing room, and I was desperately looking for at least a fifth one for my youngest nephew who goes every week, and we're both obsessed with Collingwood. But unfortunately, I wasn't successful, so my sister gave up her ticket for him to go because she knew how much it meant to him.
Oh, wow.
And so seeing his face when that siren went was just the best moment of my life. He was just so emotional. I've never seen him cry as an adult, and he was just so overwhelmed. He let me hug him, which never happens. And being able to have that moment with my parents and him was just the best. And then my sister and her other son watched it at Collingwood over the road, so we all met up afterwards to celebrate together. But oh my God, just the absolute best day of my life. 2010 replay, I was at that. Nice. And that was a really awesome moment too. But 2023, I don't think anything can beat that feeling.
That's real presty sacrifice areas there. From
it is.
Your sister.
I wasn't nice enough to give it up, but she was.
Oh, well, that just means they can go to 2025 then. I'm sure they can all find the way.
That's right.
Alyssa, it's been lovely to have you on as part of the Pies Nation podcast. Hope you enjoyed being on, and hopefully we get to celebrate with you much more throughout the year.
Yes, thanks so much, guys. I really appreciate you having me on.
Thanks, Alyssa.
Thank you for coming on.
That's all right. Thanks.
And there you go. That was Alyssa joining us as part of the Guess the Crowd competition. That could be you if you guess closest to the pin, so keep an eye out for Lukey's post before each game day. Have your best shot at it. And if you are the closest one, or in this case, the second closest, that'll be you joining us as part of our Guess the Crowd competition. Well, there you go. That's very impressive stuff.
And if you think you're close, make sure you answer your messages or have a look, because you might be the winner.
What a great story, Nico, giving up your grand final ticket. So I presume it was a son she gave it to. So, yeah, shout out to Alyssa's sister for doing that. It's not something that I would be doing if I secured myself a grand final ticket.
Absolutely
not. Yeah, very unselfish and well done. Hopefully we can get back there and she can see one live.
Yeah, I do feel though, like I know me and you, Nico, as well, we're quite lucky to end up with our tickets in 23. It feels like, obviously for the diehards that missed out, it feels like only right for them to get a chance, I guess, later on this year. And obviously we all...
we're going early, aren't we?
Obviously we all hope to go as well again, but there are quite a few diehards that I felt a bit, sorry and sad for that they did miss out, and hopefully they get an opportunity later on this year.
Absolutely. All right, let's swing across to the VFL report. I'm going to get right into things with Surge, because fortunately Collingwood were able to get the job done against Box Hill to the tune of 17 points, and we have quietly snuck our way up into 5th position in the VFL. The Hawks were 7-1 coming into this game, so pretty good effort again from the Pies at Box Hill City Oval. They were top of the ladder as well, according to Surge, and 7th were Collingwood at the time. Collingwood made 8 changes, including our mid-season draftees, Steele and House. How hilarious was that we picked up those two? But great to see them get their opportunity. The Hawks hit the first 3 goals of the game, and then Collingwood's forwards really struggled to capitalise on their inside 50s until Will Hayes burst out of congestion to kick Collingwood's only goal of the opening term. In general play, Tom Mitchell, Mason Cox, Harry DiMattia all stood out, along with Sam Glover and the latest Pie Noah Steele. In the second term, Collingwood piled on the pressure with their tackling, harassing the Hawks at every contest. Collingwood's run game improved as they started to control the match thanks to the dominance of Mitchell and DiMattia. Collingwood had more inside 50s than the opposition, and whilst the Pies forwards marked well, Some poor goal kicking prevented Collingwood from icing the game as early as they could have. Will Hayes was lively up forward as well. He increased his chances of being recalled into the senior side. The Hawks struggled to match up on Mason Cox, who marked well around the ground and finished with 2 goals. Collingwood finished the second term with singles to debutant Burns as well as Di Mattia, and Hayes kicked 6-5 to lead by 12 points as the Pies pressure continued into the third term. They maintained their control around stoppages thanks to Mitchell and Di Mattia again. Scoring slowed as both sides fumbled and turned the ball over. However, Collingwood still managed to kick 2-1 in the third quarter, and they led by 17 points at the final change. It was a tough and scrappy affair in the last quarter. Collingwood trying to hold on to their lead, Hawks challenging. The lead got reduced to 3 points before Oscar Steen took a brilliant pack mark and kicked the goal. 4 moments later, the Pies kicked another to seal the game. This was a good win after last week's disappointing performance. The Pies had many contributors across all lines. However, Tom Mitchell and Harry Di Mattia stood tall. Will Hayes and Mason Cox kicked 6 of our 11 goals to be the best forwards combined. So, again, some really strong performances from our AFL listed players, gents.
And another strong performance from the Surge, who we thank and love him for doing that for us week in, week out. So thank you, shout out to you, Surge. But some really important names there, Nico. Hayes, Di Mattia and Mitchell and Cox all performing in the best. So that's really promising signs for us, because not only do we think we're going to rush any of those blokes into this team, I don't think so, but should there be a bit of a calamity come injuries or anything like that, Lukey, we seem to be in good stead.
And you know what builds a premiership side in the AFL is a strong VFL outfit. So if we're flying in the 2s, then we're going to be doing all right in the 1s. And it just shows that there's no, I guess, there probably is a couple blokes who are, locks for this AFL side, but it just shows that if you drop off a little, there's guys, clawing their way in. So,
well, with the unfortunate injuries to Lipinski and Lockie Schultz that we didn't even get the chance to touch on, there's some opportunity there.
Yeah, absolutely. So you'd think Will Hayes and Di Mattia could come in potentially and fill that void, or even is there a world in which Tom Mitchell comes in and plays a bit more of a forward role with the dominance of Ned Long in the middle? So yeah, one to watch, Nico.
Yeah, he had 9 clearances and a goal in the VFL, so wait and see. We take on Casey this week, 7:10 Saturday night at Whitten Oval. So that's only because that will be broadcast on Channel 7, and it needs to be at a suitable ground for that to occur.
Yeah, so that's Saturday night.
It'll be Saturday night, so we can have a watch of that.
I was thinking, when are we playing? It's Monday.
Monday, of course. Big King's birthday game, of course. VFLW, the Pies got a win, and a big win over at Vic Park. 61-8 the final score, 8-13 to 1-2. So could have even won by a slightly greater margin, but a superb performance all round from the Pies girls, who have had a pretty solid start to the season as well. They are in 7th position, sitting with a 4-3 record, so they have been producing some good footy. They take on Essendon this Saturday, 11:35. That's at the AIA Centre, so at the Collingwood training camp as well. The Bombers are 5-2, so hopefully the Pies can continue their winning ways there. Now, I would usually have a game for you boys, but I think we've covered so much content that I'm going to give it a rest, and I'm going to let your minds ponder around what I could sort of bring to the table.
Jack was stressing big time.
First week back.
I've got some real tough ones for you when we come back. Don't worry. But thought I'd wrap that up. I thought it was pretty opportune to talk about how important that win was for the Pies, and looking forward to King's birthday, gents.
Yeah, we are, Nico. You obviously a bit of a different preview coming up this week on Thursday, so the Pies Nation faithful have to wait for that one. But our thoughts on that game, Luke, I think a bit of a danger game for the Pies. The D's will be filthy on their performance on Sunday up there in Alice Springs, so they'll be looking to come out firing. Look, it's got to be said that their best footy at certain stages this year has looked very dangerous, so we'll have to be on our toes and at our best. But I think if we can bring 3 quarters of the game we brought against the Hawks, this should be a pretty comfortable 4 points.
I was going to say their form's been pretty decent, I guess, the last few weeks until that Saints game. But, I mean, Alice Springs, anything can happen with the footy games there. So probably don't take that or too much out of that going into this week. And obviously Melbourne will be fighting to get back on the winners list, and no bigger scalp in the game now than Collingwood. And it is their grand final, as most clubs say.
Always is.
So shout out to Peter Dacos, who will be going down the slide as well.
Absolutely.
I'm not sure if we have any other Collingwood affiliated people going down as well, but that'll be a bit more airtime for Peter Dacos, who's been on our screens a fair bit, so he'll love that.
Deservingly so, might add. And for a great cause, so be sure to get involved if you can as well by helping fight the beast. All right, Jack, Luke, thank you boys for coming in and getting involved.
Thank you, Nico. Thanks, Jack. Good to have Jack back on at least the Monday episodes. I know he's done a couple of the previews, but we haven't seen you on the big screen for a few weeks, Jacko. So.
Life's been pretty busy with placement and uni and work and all that. But yeah, I don't think I've had a shave since I came back either, just quietly. But no, good to be back. Thanks for having me, Nico and Lukey, and looking forward to next week already.
I think it needs to be the On the Siren volunteer weeks going forward because you're just racking up the views for us.
Got us to 1,000.
So thank you very much.
1,000 subs himself.
All right, well, it'll be next Tuesday that we're filming, so keep an eye out for that. But until then, I've been Nicholas Sacco. You've been listening to or watching the Pies Nation podcast, where the pies are hot and the drinks are cold. We love all our listeners and viewers across Australia that enjoy the Pies Nation podcast, but we love our overseas viewers and listeners as well. And one of those that have gotten on board are the boys and girls over at the North Texas Devils in the US, who are looking for players to join their sides ahead of the 2025 season. Based in Dallas, Texas, and established back in 2020, they're hoping to bolster awareness of Australian rules football over in the US. And any of those listening or watching our podcast that are heading over to the US at some point this year, the one team for you to get involved with is the North Texas Devils. We'll give you all the information in our descriptions, I should say, across our podcasts and YouTube. But a great opportunity to get involved with some Aussie rules and teach the Yanks the best game in the world. And you can do so thanks to the North Texas Devils.